what's going on? Here we go. And welcome to another exciting adventure on Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight's guest I had the privilege of meeting in person at the 2025 Full Disclosure Now conference. And I have seen her shows, and she has popped in on my show, so we support each other, which is really cool. And we had talked about having an episode before, and life just happened, so we are, and I am so blessed to finally be able to have this guest on here. It has been long awaiting, many months planning, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the awesome, amazing, super informative, very well versed, wise one, Aurora Diamondheart.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you for that. I'm so happy to be here with you. And yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I know it's been a couple months that we ahead of time that we even had to plan it. And I think I remember I even got the date wrong and I thought it was last month and I literally had like replanned my whole day for it and everything like that. And you were like, "Oh yeah, no, it's not until the 22nd of October." I was like, "Oh, okay, okay." Yeah, I love your by the way, your intro, super cool. Love that
Thank you.
intro. Yeah, it really I a good intro really hypes it up, you know what I'm saying? So, very sweet. Well done job on that one. Mhm.
Yes, my cousin did amazing on that. He surprises me all the time with how he puts these together, and it's just wow. I'm like so glad and so grateful for his help. And you have an amazing show as well. And for the viewers who may not follow you, why don't you give a little bit of background to what you do and what your shows are?
Okay, sure. Um Well, I started a nifty little YouTube channel that is just my name. It's Aurora Diamondheart. So if you want to come over and hang out with me sometime, I would love to have you there. Always looking to get some new followers and everything like that. And really, what started it all off for me was just that I was having these very strange, intense, and miraculous experiences. And it really started off with the birth of my daughter, or I should say, the pregnancy of my daughter. And over about a period of 4 years from there, like I just had all these very strange, synchronistic, it's like God kind of leads you step by step, to find yourself. And that was mainly what I was looking for. I was looking to find out, who am I really, and I think that spirit has been guiding me and showing me that little by little. But the main thing that I love to talk about is, first of all, I love to talk about tarot. I love to do my tarot readings at the end of the shows, and I love fortune cookies. So I do think that there is magic in fortune cookies. And lastly, the most important part of my streams that I think that people can relate to is I like to share various stories of out there in the world, like movies, TV shows. It could be even, I suppose, like fairy tales, you could say. But I feel like the stories that we are attracted to, the things that get us most excited to think about and to watch and to be a part of, is what tells us about ourselves. So I basically am sharing my most beloved stories with people and trying to show them, like, this is how I found myself, you know? And so I'm always trying to remind people, like, the characters you're drawn to, the stories that you're drawn to, not everyone is drawn to the same stuff. And if you stop and think about that for a minute, it's like and people can even be drawn to the same stuff, and they could have a very similar story to mine, even possibly, you know, but most likely people are going to choose their own different things, and it's going to show them who they really are. And so I try to give these stories, and in conjunction with, this is how I relate to it, this is how spirit tells me what I've lived, what I've experienced, what I'm going to experience, even on top of having very basically, when it really kicked off for me, the spirit came to me and they told me that my purpose here was to help make dreams come true, and that the way that they were going to do that was by making all of my dreams come true first. It was a very special moment for me. And from that point on, anytime I have a dream, for the most part, except for maybe a very small, less than one hand count, every dream that I have happens either the next day or usually within a couple days. And it's the elements of the dream that show up. So I literally do, my dreams literally do come true, you know? So I just really want people to be able to find themselves and be able to find their connection to God, and to be able to feel important and special, and like their life has meaning and purpose. Because I think that that is what the world has really, the dark forces in the world has really tried its hardest, is to stomp out true meaning and purpose. And I'm trying to revive that, I guess you could say.
No, and that's a beautiful mission. And one thing that I find interesting that you do is, you're talking about God and all of this, but then you do the tarot, and it's like, I love that you combine those, because I know there are so many people out there who are like, oh, tarot is either it's a game, or oh, it's not of the light, it's dark. And you're over here showing, no, it's not. It's
No,
a
it's
great
a tool.
messaging tool, and it is
Yeah,
totally of the light.
absolutely. It's all going to be about what you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're someone who is trying to use that tool for a bad purpose, well, then, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It might come out bad. But for people who know what tarot really is, it is just a divination tool that spirit can use, because they can move faster than us. They're on a higher frequency than us. So as we're sitting there and we're shuffling up the cards and the energies of the cards, I've literally seen tarot magic happen before my eyes. I've literally had them, like, at one point I had cut the deck. And this was long ago when I was first starting to really get back into it again. And so I'd cut the deck, and there was this song I was listening to, and I was like really getting into the song and moving all around and stuff. And I looked at the bottom, I looked at the two cards that were on the bottom of the deck, and by the end of the song, one of the cards had changed on its own. I hadn't even brought the deck close to each other. It changed on its own. So I know that spirit is able to get those cards in a certain way to where they know you're going to pick out the card that is meant for you to be seeing. Okay. And not only did the card change, but the card that was on the bottom of this hand of the deck literally flipped over to the other deck and was behind the card that was originally on the bottom of that deck.
That is
And
super cool.
it, it was super, not only was it super cool, but get this a little bit of a kicker here. The song I was listening to, when I went, and I never heard this song before, when I went and I watched the music video to the song, that is basically what was happening in the music video. Was the lead singer, had taken a deck of cards and he had laid 3 cards down and he did a swap. And one of the main cards that I had was the Ace of Cups, and it just so happens he had a chalice, which is exactly what's on the Ace of Cups, and he poured water into it and he threw it or whatever. So it was like the video for the song actually lined up with what I experienced in my life, with the deck. So yeah, but you have to be willing to build that relationship. You have to be able to build that relationship with not just your cards, but with God, and how God can communicate, how your spirit guides can communicate with you through those. Like what those cards mean to you, what the meaning is for you, is what's going to matter the most in building that relationship and that dialogue with God and spirit. But yeah, it's not satanic. I've had people say that before, like it's all satanic, but those are people that I think are just getting a little bit paranoid at that point. They're just, everything is bad.
Yeah, no. Yeah, everybody, has their own, and I find interesting is when I, was studying the tarot, I was literally like, when I first came across it, I was like, okay, so it's like a deck of cards. There's messages in a book. Okay, I get it. And then somebody goes, but what do you see in the card? And I was like, well, I see this image. I go, no, no. What hidden message is in the card? And I'm like, there's hidden messages. And so then I started looking again at the cards and going, wait a minute, this card is more like this. And they're like, exactly. Now you're getting how to read the cards. It's not necessarily what's in the book. Yeah, that's a good guide to get you started, but it's actually reading the card. And the card, I don't know how to explain it other than it actually seems like it starts to talk to you
Hmm.
and tells you what is going on.
Yeah, I 100% relate to that. In fact, every time I do my readings, I'll give the whatever card it is that I pulled, you know what I'm saying? I'll give the basic meaning that I know to be associated with the card first, but then I stop and I really look at the card, because there are new things that come out every single time that I never know what exactly spirit's going to draw my attention to. And they're going to be like, look at this symbol. Now look at that, and like pull that out. And so it's like you get a different flavor with the same card depending on what it is that you're seeing that day. And
Right.
that is how it's almost like, okay, a long time ago I gave an example of basically like you think of the tarot deck and the cards as mosaic tiles, and tiles on themselves, like cards in themselves, are not that's not the picture, you know what I'm saying? But if you put those tiles and you arrange them in a certain form, then you can see the picture of it. And so just think about it, you just basically have these blank tiles, and depending on how they're arranged is going to make a different picture. So that's why when I do these multiple card pulls, it's going to give us a new sentence each and every time. It's going to draw us that new picture, and it helps a lot. Hmm.
I agree. And one of the things that my friend William Henry pointed out to me, that it wasn't really for tarot, but it works for tarot. And that was, he was showing me, like, hidden symbolism in some of the cards. Like when there's a gap, he's like, well, but look, there is a bridge if you know how to work through this issue. And it's like, you got to figure it out. So it's like your mind. And I looked at the card and I was like, oh, that's what that card is symbolizing. Because it was like not gelling with me what was in the book. And then he goes and he's, we're talking. And he goes, now look at swords. The word sword. If you move the S to the end, what do you have? Words. What is one of the main thing about tarot? You have the swords. What do they symbolize? Communication. They're words. And I was
That,
like, oh my gosh.
That's mind blowing. I never even thought of. I'd never heard that before myself, and that is literally mind blowing. I absolutely love that. Yes, yes, that's sweet. That's a
Yeah,
sweet connection you made there. I'm gonna use that. By the way, I'm gonna take that. So
go for it. But I mean, and that's where I love the magic, as we call it, through the cards, is because, as you know, I'm sure you've done probably hundreds of readings. I've done a small amount, but every time you'll see a card, you'll be like, "Oh, I know this card," and you're like automatically thinking, "Okay, this is what this is because that's what it was last time," and it won't be. It'll
yep,
be completely different, and it's like, wait a minute, how is this possible? It's the same card, but different.
exactly, exactly. Gosh, I had something I was gonna say about that too, real quick. Oh, and the other thing too, because really what it is especially with the major arcana, it's archetypes. You know what I'm saying? And so archetypes can't be limited to just the handbook meaning of that card. It's like archetypes are so they're deep, right? You can go into a lot of depth depending on the archetype that you pull, and we're all experiencing these archetypes in different ways. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it relates to like Carl Jung and everything. Like I think he was the one that talked a lot about archetypes and such like that. But that's what we're all experiencing. This it's like we all get to have our own unique experiences, while at the same time we're having the similar experiences. Like to help us climb up higher in frequency to get to for us to know ourselves deeper. And the thing I've been studying a lot lately has been how tarot relates to the tree of life and the tree of death and the Kabbalah. And let me
Really?
tell you that, I mean, really, it's going to take a lot of preparation, but I have been talking about it a little bit here and there. But like, you can even use the tree of life along with tarot to focus what your manifestations are, what you're trying to manifest into life. It's like if you know why the specific cards are at certain spots on that tree of life, it'll tell you. It opens it up even more. It's like watching a rose bloom. It's like you learn the basic meaning, and so it's like a little rosebud, and then you start to learn, okay, it's this archetype, and so it starts to bloom a little bit more, and then you find out, okay, well, on the tree of life it symbolizes this certain path and what comes along with that path and what planet influences that path, and so it keeps blooming and blooming and blooming until you just develop this really deep, enriching conversation with your deck. And yeah, it's great.
That's amazing because when I was a part of an organization called the Mankind Project, we would take the archetypes and we divided them into the four main archetypes, but we also honored them to a direction, and then we would define what that direction is. Like we could say, like king is the north. Well, the north is the wisdom that oversees everything.
Yes.
Okay, that so now you have three layers to that one archetype, and so now when I'm looking at the arcana, like the archetype, I'm like, now I want to go and I want to look and go, which direction do they fall in? Because that's going to have meaning. Like, east is the morning sun, so new beginnings.
Yes.
South is fire, so it's your warrior state. It's your going to stand in power mode. And west is the shadow, which everybody automatically goes, ooh, that's the dark. And they go, no, that's the magician. That's where change happens and
Yes.
transformation happens. And so it's like, now I want to go and look at the arcanas in that aspect and going, all right, which direction? Now I can read even more into these.
Yes. In fact, the videos that I'd be watching about that literally goes into what you're talking about when it comes to the directions and stuff like that. So you're on it. You're onto something. Yes, I should send you some of the videos sometimes. I bet you would be interested in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just going to tell
Well,
you so much, you know?
yeah. And was tarot something, because you mentioned that you left it and came back to it? So was it something you kind of were born into and you just did, or did someone gift you a deck and you were like, what is this, and started your path that way?
Well, I started actually when I was 13, and I was always really drawn and attracted to anything that had to do with ancient Egypt. You know, I remember Stargate was like one of my most favorite movies ever. I literally went to the theater, even walked to the dollar show when it was at the dollar show, just so that I could see this movie again and again and again. And I bought the book and I read the book version of it, and I was just like obsessed with it. And so part of this vendor that I would go to at this place called Gibraltar's Trade Center in Michigan, for anyone who knows anything about Michigan. Okay. It's this really, really big trade center. And I would go to these shops that would sell these ancient Egyptian type things. And the tarot deck was one of the things. So I ended up getting that. And so I would start by doing readings for my family. Like my mom would always be like, get out your tarot cards, let's do a reading for my friend, do this and that. And so I played with them for a while, but then I would say when I got into I quit for like my late teens, so my early teens, my preteens, right? I was using the tarot, but then I kind of fell off, and then I got a new deck, which is the deck I use now. It's called the Aquarian deck. I just fell in love with the style of the art of this deck, and so I was living in Florida at the time, and I got a new deck, and so I was practicing with it. But then I put it down for like basically I went through what I call a 10-year period of silence from my guides. It was like an initiation test that they used to do in ancient Egypt, which I kind of egged my guides into doing, because I was like, I'll be strong enough. Like, I'll never turn my back on God. I love God so much. You guys could not talk to me for 10 years. I'd never forget God. I'd never forget you guys. And then it happened. And I went down the darkest path that I could possibly go down, I think, for for the 10 years. And then when the 10 years was over and they started coming back, it was like there was this huge mess that basically I ended up having to clean up. But slowly but surely, I got myself back together, and through the Course in Miracles workbook, I was able to really like deprogram all of just the chaos and the trauma. Not that I've gotten rid of all of it, but a lot of it, that book helped me work through, and then eventually it led me back to tarot. And so yeah, here I am now, like. Mhm.
So that actually brings up a really interesting introspective question I have for you: is looking at how you were in your preteen before everything, how you were reading the tarot and using it, and comparing it to today, do you feel like there's a major difference and it's easier now, or was it easier then?
Oh,
What's
now.
your feelings of the difference?
Oh, definitely now. I think that what I was lacking in my teens was just life experience. So it was like I would have to go based on just what the book was saying. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really have a lot of things to compare it to. And that's one of the reasons why I think people who are going to get into tarot, they need to pull for themselves often. Pull out daily if they can. I try to do it daily. I haven't always been on top of it every day, but I do try to pull cards for myself every single day. And when you start doing that in the mornings, and then you have a crazy ass day, you can go back and look at those cards and be like, okay, well, now I have more life experience to relate to that to. Like, for instance, I was just talking to you earlier before we came out here about how I got into a car accident yesterday. Some guy hit my fucking car, rear ended me real bad. And when I went back and I looked at the cards, it's like one of the cards that came up was the Judgment card. And I always had heard that the judgment card was a very harsh card. I'd already had a couple experiences with it where I felt like it was a very harsh card. But this is what I was like, yeah, that definitely, like, all the three cards that I had, it definitely made sense. I'm trying to remember what some of the other ones were now, but it was like, gosh, what was it? It was the judgment and and it was, I got the star card too. I got the judgment and the star card. So I was like, so I knew it was destiny for this to happen. Like it was bound to happen eventually. But if anything, like it just felt like almost like a little bit of a test to see if it would throw me out of the frequency of love. How would I handle that? Like, would I be able to just let it go and relax and go with the flow? And I really was. I really was. And I was very, very pleased with that fact, actually. So, but yeah, so that's just a small example of how practicing with it is going to, like, life experiences are going to train you to know all the different possibilities that can come along with this, like those particular cards, you know?
And what's amazing is we're almost in sync because as you were describing the reaction to the accident, my mind, I was like going, oh, yeah, this is one of those moments where I get to point out a new way to look at it. And then you just went right where I was going to go. And I was like, and she's already there. Of course
Yep.
she is.
We're telepathically in alignment. Yes, definitely.
But, and it amazes me. And, I'll, I'll reword what I was going to suggest to you about it in a little bit different way so that people may understand more clearly what we're talking about is the way you reacted to the situation differently shows your growth, in my opinion. And that's the gift that we're given in these scenarios. Not that, we need to have the accidents, but it's the universe's way of going and saying, you say you've grown. Now let's see if you really have. And they'll put a situation in front of you in different ways and goes, yeah, look at how you've grown. Before you would react like this, now you're
Oh yeah.
reacting like this.
Before I would have came out swinging, and I have. Before people have hit me, I've gotten out of my car like I'm about to face you. Like this time I was just like, oh man, I could see, and I felt bad. The guy was like literally shaking, and he was just so
Yeah.
upset. He felt so bad, and I was just like, it's okay. Like we're both physically okay. It's just a car. My car is still drivable. So like if I could, in fact, this is something I'll tell you guys here. I'm a Door Dasher, as I'm sure a lot of you know. If you've watched me before, or listened to me talk before, or even seen my Facebook post, and I was in the middle of a DoorDash when this guy hit me, and I was 1.4 miles away from my delivery, and I told the guy, I said, "Listen," I said, "stay here. Let me go drop this off real quick." And I left and I went and I dropped it off and I came back and then I put my dash on pause because I was like, that was a ballsy move on my part. But you know what? I could tell. I could tell the guy was trustworthy. He had that look to him, and he wasn't gonna go anywhere. And he was there when I got back. We drove to the police station together. It was a whole thing.
Well, and what's interesting too is we were talking a little bit about it. What we were talking about is something that I've been observing is as we're in this new alignment and new energies, we're not only finding ourselves reacting differently, but we're seeing things that are in the scenario differently. Like you were saying, you saw, you remembered him saying, I only looked down, at my phone for a second. And and it's like, who actually would admit, in an accident, how they were at fault?
Absolutely.
That's new. It's like everybody is starting to fess up and be like, yeah, I did this. Like, I guess it's my fault. And it's like, wait, you just owned it? We don't have to get you like arguments and like the insurance companies fighting. You're just we're done. Okay, this is cool.
Yeah, he was honestly, I was very pleasantly surprised. He was very helpful about it. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't gonna try and lie about it. He wasn't gonna try and make himself look any different because the cars told the story. He like really
Yeah,
the cars said everything that you, but you know, like in some other area that maybe might not have been as nice, and someone who was maybe a little bit more afraid, maybe they would have drove off. You know, I never know. But no, I was lucky enough that I got a good experience out of it, and I actually I felt myself wanting to comfort the guy more than anything else. Like I just wanted to give him a hug and be like, "It's okay, buddy. Like, you know, you made a mistake. It's not a big deal. We're getting our stuff fixed. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to pay for it, but you know, like at least we're okay, you know." And
yeah.
so, and I overheard his conversation he was having with someone, and he was like, "Oh, I guess he had been just trying to decide if he was going to go somewhere for the weekend." And he said to the person, he said, "I guess this is a sign." I was
Yeah, you never know. That
like, "I guess
accident
it
could
was,
have
bud."
kept him from something that was not going to be beneficial for him.
Yeah,
So
he wasn't
you
meant to be
were
going
the
nowhere.
gift that prevented something.
Yeah, right. It could have been even worse. He could have had a terrible time. Like he was talking. Probably shouldn't have been eavesdropping so much, but he was talking about how yeah he's gonna take the car in. It's just like the time he hit the deer. He said it was just like the time he hit the deer. I was like, oh wow, so this is not the first time you've not been paying
Yeah.
attention to
Oh,
what you're supposed to be doing.
now we're building a
So,
pattern here,
oh
mister.
yeah, exactly. Like you are guilty, guy. You are guilty. Oh my god.
No, but to be honest, though, you know, anyone who's around you would totally, I can see how you get that comforting aura about you because when I was around you, I was like, as much as I was rushing around getting everything done, it's like every time our paths crossed, it's like my entire world went like up here to relaxed.
Whew.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
you know, I felt the
oh,
same about your energy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I felt the same way. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, I was saying that's the gift of who you are, is it's like your energy is like it's a natural calmer just by being in your presence. It's like everything just kind of drops and balances almost.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I do try to I do try to bring that to people. I do because I guess because I know what it's like to be so anxious all the time and have people not really be considerate of that, you know? So I just want people to feel comfortable. I want them to feel safe enough to be themselves and to
Mm.
open up and to make real connections because that's really what life is about. It's about the connections that we make with people and the impressions that we leave on them.
Yeah, and is it okay if I mention something that I asked you before we went live that I said
Oh,
was
yeah, go
that
right ahead.
private thing?
Yeah, no, no, go right ahead.
So that's where that kind of stems from, was experiencing that and seeing you on screen, feeling that energy. I always interpreted that to mermaid. And so I thought, I have, now that I'm finally talking to you face to face, I'm like, now that I'm talking to a mermaid, I want to totally ask about it. And you were like, no, I'm not a mermaid. And I was like, are you sure?
You know what's so crazy? This just popped into my head. What you might be sensing, you know, is that, okay, first of all, my favorite planet is Neptune, which is like a watery type of planet, but
Right.
also, um, my higher self looks like a fish being. I've seen a picture, I've seen a brief vision of her at one point in time, and I could tell she was very much like a mermaid. And even some of the other characters that I've related to this past year, it was like a mix between a fairy, a lion, and a fish being. So, Yeah, I definitely think because I'm almost positive. I mean, obviously we all have other what's the word, other versions of ourselves that live in other either dimensions or other planets and things of that nature. And so I've always felt like I definitely, there's a water planet that I'm a part of. In fact, what she really looked like, because a lot of my characters that I relate to is from the ocean. For instance, Calypso from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
That's my goddess energy is Calypso. So that would make sense a lot that you would that would come across as mermaid feeling, because she's kind of a shapeshifter and she can turn into all sorts of things that has to do with the ocean. And the vision that I got though of my highest self was she had blue skin. She had a small frame. She had these little holes right here, like that were like ridges, and she had fish eyes. It kind of looked like, Hellboy, the movie
Yeah.
Hellboy 2. Abe, right? Abe's the fish guy, right? She had
Right.
eyes that looked like that. And then she had blue tentacles, like for hair. It was these blue tentacles that were coming down and around. And so I felt like that is why I feel like that was why when I first dyed my hair blue, it felt like, wow, this is the closest I've ever gotten to the real me. And I think that that's because that is what my highest self looks like, is this aquatic fish, beautiful fish woman, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And Selena's commenting, very cool. I get mermaid
Oh,
vibes too from you.
I love you guys. I'm so happy to see my friends here. Hi, guys.
Yeah. And so when you go from place to place, doing events, because I know you go to events and everything, and I know you're just sitting in the audience. I haven't noticed you having a booth or anything, and so I just am curious. What draws you to the events that you go to? Is there like a feeling, or do you get a message that says, "Hey, you're needed here in this town at this event at this time"?
um, I would say the main thing that draws me to these is, for one, my community being there and who's going to be there. I show up for my friends for the most part, but also because I know that, I mean, that's the thing they really took away from us the most was social gatherings, and those are the most important things. And I have been lucky enough to be a speaker at one of them, but it was such a small one that most people don't even really know about it. It was kind of forgotten about along the way. But I do think there is a certain calling that I get. And if I know if I'm meant to be at one of these events, is that things will just go smoothly when I'm planning to go to it. And if it's not going smoothly, then I'm not meant to go to it. And so I do think that, and I've actually, yeah, I have noticed this before, that it's like we are God's eyes and ears on the ground. And so I do feel like I am called to certain events to really get a good view of the people who are throwing those events and to see if they are in alignment really with the highest best good for bringing like everyone up a level. You know what I'm saying? That's why I really loved Brian's conferences, because it really felt like he was bringing energy, even though I didn't necessarily vibe with everyone that he had speaking and everything like that. Like, I really felt he was bringing the energy of the highest best good for everyone involved. He wanted people to enjoy themselves. He wanted people to connect. He wanted people to get exposed to all these things. But I've been to other conferences where, and you can tell the difference between a conference that is like basically not supported by spirit as opposed to one that is, because the ones that are not supported by spirit, where it's like the person who is throwing that event isn't exactly in alignment, they're not doing it exactly for the right reasons, and so therefore they hardly sell any tickets. I think I've been to two of them where it's like they sold under 30 tickets and they put so much money into it, but the whole entire time, like for one woman I was listening to her talk about it, the whole entire time she was just stressing about the amount of money that she was going to possibly get or make from it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's what was different about Brian's, is that he wasn't concerned about the amount of money so much that he was going to make back on it. He was more concerned with the experience people were going to have, you know. And like another lady, she, when I got there and I was around her energy, it was very, very negative. And I won't name names, but it was basically like the worst conference that I went to as far as things go. I was like literally attacked energetically at this conference, and it was such a bad event that she had to not only end it, because all she was talking about was like, you could just see it, you could just see the fear, you could see the stress, you could feel the anger. It felt like there was an entity attached to her. And she was like doing, like, had these people there that were like doing these ceremonies where they were calling forth all these ancient gods and stuff like that. And then people don't know what all these ancient gods, like, you don't know if those are good or bad, these entities you're calling forward. Like, you could feel it, you could just tell. And it went so bad that she literally had to end her conference throwing days basically for under that name. She had to completely rebrand herself because of how bad, what a bad taste in the mouth it left with other people. So I do kind of feel that way. It's funny that you had asked me this, because I do kind of feel like sometimes God sends me in there just so that I can see what's going on with the person, you know, because I'm a real angel here. I'm a real angelic starseed. I'm here working for God. I want to bring all the people that we're one being. I want to bring us all a little bit closer to that step up in frequency, so that way enough of us, when we all get that step up, it will burst forward through the whole planet, and the whole planet will be uplifted.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I love how you bring that up about, the authenticity of the people is what you're looking at, and everything over, the message and everything, so to speak, because that was one thing that I and a friend of mine mentioned on Facebook recently in a post was, you go to places and you see people who are on screen or on TV in a certain way, and you're like, that's really cool, that, somebody I'd like to hang out with. And then you meet them in person and they're not that way. And it's like, what happened? What, where is the person I was watching? And in going to the Brian's conference, everyone we were meeting and talking with were exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it was like everybody was being their authentic, true selves. And I was like, so amazing to see that, because it's like so rare that,
Mm,
there's a space to do that.
I totally agree with you on that one. And that's what's so, like, sorry, excuse me. Like, for instance, and I will call out a name on this one a little bit, or a brand of, okay, like the one that I felt like was the least authentic and the most corrupted, honestly, I would say was the GSIC conferences. Sorry, Elena Denon and her whole group. I know I probably shouldn't even say their name. God knows they'll come after me. They'll blackball me from everything in the world, but um, their authentic self is not there. You know, I think if you want an example of what someone on TV is like, and then you meet them in person and what that is, how different that is, it's like she is not who she seems to be on the YouTube channel, like how she talks, who she is. That energy does not translate when you actually get to meet her in person. And she does not have that same, like, from what I noticed, most people won't, like with Brian's conferences, like all the speakers and stuff, but yes, we're all there being our authentic selves. And so it's like what you get on their YouTube videos and stuff like that is what you're going to get when you meet them in person. And I forget where I was going with that a little bit. Basically, yeah, she's a good
See,
example of what it's not like, and everyone that was at Brian's recent conference is a good example of what it is like. And I feel like that's why I try to support those types of conferences the most, you know, because that's what we really need. We need true, authentic people who are telling the truth, who are being real, who don't think that they know it all. You know what I'm saying? Who are willing to and are willing to get along and see other people's conflict, like might have a conflicting story with theirs. and still be okay, and let them have their differing opinion. We can be living in completely different worlds side by side, and that's okay. It's about cohesion and harmony, I guess you could say, because that's really what God is. I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's what God is. So of course we're going to want, like, that's what we need to bring back, is that community. And it's okay that some people don't get along even in it, but as long as we have respect and we're being our real self, I feel like that should be honorable. We should be able to honor each other with that. And that's what made it the best conference for me this year, like,
Yeah.
and the year before that. It was literally two of the best conferences that I've been to, out of the many that I have been to, because I usually go to about 2 a year. So, but unfortunately it feels like no one's really throwing any more out here. I don't see anyone advertising, other than the Full Disclosure Now one for next year already. Oh yeah, that's right, the Journey to Truth one. But they've like limited their pool of who can even go, because they're doing theirs in Hawaii. So that's really gonna cut down the amount of people that can go because of just access to funds.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, and
Same.
there are so many conferences out there. If you're in, I guess, certain groups, you hear about so many. And like you're saying, it's hard to go to every one, so you have to really sit down and be like, which ones really do I need to be at, versus which ones would just be nice to be at. And networking wise, you'd love to be able to go to every single one, but then you would never be home in some cases.
Exactly. Like
And
Laura
it's,
Eisenhower, she's never that chick. She's never home. She's always at a conference. Every post I always see her post. She's like, I just got back from the airport. I'm getting ready to leave for the airport, and I'm like,
yeah.
wow, like, where is she going?
Yeah,
Like,
she
oh
even was
my
commenting today. She's at the airport and her flight's delayed, and it's like,
gosh.
that's the worst, because when you time everything precisely, it's like, oh, you can't afford to have those delays.
Yeah, that's what that I don't know. For me, what that says to me about her is that her energy really is needed at all these different places. Because we're like grid working when we go and we fly to these places. That's how I've always kind of seen it, which I've never. Grid working is such a weird term in itself, just to understand the concept of it. But what Spirit tried to show me once was basically, it's like, imagine your soul star chakra is like an acupuncture pin into the ground. You know what I'm saying? So everywhere you travel, on the earth, you are grid working your energy onto the land, so to speak. And so that's why I think Laura is needed at all these different places, because she does really truly bring in the mother frequencies, the divine mother frequencies. And I vibe a lot with her work. She talks a lot about Lisa Renee's work, with the Ascension Glossary. And I've had a lot of my own very crazy synchronistic events that have happened in regards to Lisa Renee's work. So I know that whatever Lisa Renee has tapped into with the Ascension Glossary, it is real. Like, obviously there's always going to be distortions to a certain extent, but I feel like she's gotten some of the most purest information out there, even though it comes across really technical. Do you hear that scratching in the background? I just need to ask you real quick.
I do hear it.
Okay. 1 second, briefly, sir. I'm so sorry. All right, I'm back. Sorry. That was my cat. She just can't bear to be without me, even for an hour or so. So anyway, what I was
I
saying
can't
was,
blame her.
oh, appreciate that. But so what I was saying was, with Lisa Renee's information, like, a lot of it comes across very technical and hard to understand, but I actually personally love that type of information, because it means that you really have to take the time to digest the words and what the concept is of what she's really talking about, and having experience. Like, for instance, I'll give you a really good example. Okay, when I was pregnant with my daughter and I was about to have my soul braid walk-in experience, My soul braid walk-in came to me, and they basically told me that Anubis had my heart. They were very specific, and they said Anubis has your heart, and they said look behind your bed. And when I looked behind my bed, it was dark, and I got scared for a second because I saw some things, these two eyes behind my bed, and I was like, oh my God. And I got scared. They said, get your flashlight and look behind your bed. And so I got my flashlight and I looked, and then I noticed that the two eyes, the glowing yellow eyes, was actually from a stuffed animal that was an Anubis shaped stuffed animal. And behind Anubis was a heart, like a squishy heart. And it had Mickey and Minnie Mouse on it. And Mickey was handing Minnie Mouse a flower. And so and that's when Spirit told me, they said, your heart has died. Anubis has your heart because it's been killed, basically, from the amount of traumas that I went through. And flash forward 4 years later, I don't even know how I ended up finding it. I literally don't even remember how I ended up coming across this information, but in the Ascension Glossary itself, it talks about the Anubian black heart, and she has a whole section on it, and how the Anubian black heart is created when the diamond heart of a starseed is crushed to death by traumas and emotional pains of the world. And so, I mean, you can't make that kind of synchronicity up, for
No.
them to tell me that, and the Nubian black heart, and then to find out that was that another woman had written an entire Ascension glossary, and that was one of the chapters that she had was on exactly how it happens and everything like that. And I looked and it was like, yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. And there's been other instances where spirit has guided me, just randomly. They're like, you should look up what this term means. And so I'll look it up. And it happens to be in the Ascension glossary. And it's describing exactly what I went through again, so I forget how we started that and got to this point, but basically, yeah, don't get put off by the technical or the hard to read and comprehend types of spiritual texts and information out there, and go with what resonates with you most. Like, some people resonate more with the law of one. You know what I'm saying? Which I also really enjoy the law of one. It's very similar to Lisa Renee's Ascension Glossary. But you got to realize this is not like it's not like the 30 to 90-second TikTok videos. These are things, if you really want the gifts of spirit, then you have to show your devotion and that you really want to unlock. It's like you have to work for that key to unlock what that true meaning is. And the more you do that, the more you enrich your own spirit, the more you enrich your own life. The more you're going to know yourself more, the more you're going to realize, wow, we are all connected, and we're all connected to God. And that's our purpose. Our purpose is to get into the highest frequency states of love that we can get, because that's our birthright, and that's what we were naturally born to be doing. That's what we were born to feel. And the fact that they've created a world in which we are just bombarded with experiences that take us down and take us down and take us down, and then try to keep us down, that's really the tragedy of what the human race is experiencing, right?
It is. And one thing that's like in the back of my mind, and I don't know why it's in the back of my mind, but I want to ask, because you talk about the Anubian black heart and how it's the star seed that's been crushed to the point of no return. But there, in my experience and my knowledge, there is no point of no return.
Yes.
And so it's like I envision like the Nubian black heart turns like almost like phoenix egg, where it just reaches a certain point and then hatches and a new heart is formed out of it.
Yes, you got it. Right on. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what happened to me. Is like, yes, but here's the thing. What about the star seeds out there that don't even know that this is the thing and that we are born with these diamond hearts that are getting crushed by these by addictions and emotional turmoils and just bad experiences after bad experiences, like abuse and all of this such. Like, what about those people who don't even know? Well, then they're not really going to have that opportunity unless they're willing to um, lose their ego, so to speak, a little bit. But no, for people who are meant to clear that up, like that was the reason that they came and told me about this. And when I did my first meditation, and hold on one second, I'm so sorry, but I can hear my son talking now that I left now that I let the cat in the room. My son was being extra loud. So let me just shut that. If you know me and you've watched any of my streams, you know that Spirit won't let me sit in front of the camera the entire episode. I have to get up at least once. This is it's like my curse. And I swear to God, if she goes back over to that door and starts scratching, I'm going to go crazy. But that was how, because once they told me that my heart had been crushed, that Anubis had my heart, I did a meditation for the first time in many years. And when I looked down at my heart, first of all, I saw my guides around me, and they scared me. Okay, I was like very fearful at this point in my life, and it looked like they were taking flashlights and putting this flashlight underneath their chins, and so that's why they looked scary. And so they said stop. They're like calm down, and they were like look again. And so when I looked again, it looked like this big obsidian rock, like this black goo that had just encased my heart, but there was a crack. There was a single crack in it, and through that crack was shining this light blue light. And so basically, it came down to my soul braid walk-in, which I think is just a version of me from the future or some other reality. Okay, came to help me. Sorry, my cat again. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Anyway, when they came to help me, they basically said, if we're going to become one, like I can help you heal this heart. I can help you fix this heart. But you have to agree. You have to consent to it. So take your time and think about it. And if there's any questions you have to ask, then please feel free to ask. And so I did take a couple days to really think about it and what this entity basically was asking me to agree to. And I eventually did say yes, okay, because the questions that I had, they answered really well, and I trusted, and I had prayed sincerely with all my heart for someone to come and help me, that I couldn't do it alone, that I needed to heal for my daughter's sake, because my daughter was going to go out there and she was going to become an example of who I am. The same way that I grew up and I became an example of what my mother lived, my daughter was about to do that. And I was just like, and she can't be born into what I'm living. It was so terrible. I didn't even know what happiness was anymore. I had a dream at one point where um, I had a friend that was visiting me, and we were in this old bedroom in this old house that I lived in, and this bright light was on in the room, and I was laughing, I was smiling. When I woke up from that dream, I realized that it had been so long since I felt happiness, I didn't even know what it was anymore until that dream showed me that. And so I agreed with my soul braid walk-in to go ahead and become one being, and that was when basically they had to take me to my deepest, darkest childhood trauma. And that was what broke open the heart. It was like taking a hammer to that obsidian, and they just broke it open. And from that point on, that's the work I was doing, was working to rebuild this heart. So everything you said, that was basically what I was jumping off of, was like, you're absolutely right. It's not the end. When you hear me say, the Black Anubian heart and the starseed heart getting crushed, don't get pessimistic about it. I'm living proof that it can be rebuilt and it can be brought back online, and you can go on to help you fulfill your mission. Who knows? This probably was my destiny the whole time, was to do this so that way I could be an example of that for other people to be able to follow, because how many people out there are truly living a life where they don't feel real deep meaning in it?
Yeah, and I actually just had a moment of kind of awareness in my mind of, some of the key words that you had mentioned in your story, like Starseed was born with a diamond heart. But if you don't understand the diamond, you can't, take care of it properly. So you're on Earth. This is the proving ground. Well, how are diamonds formed on Earth? They're crushed,
Yes.
put under immense pressure, if I can talk,
Yeah.
and they come out shining brighter with more clarity and more value. And so, if you take that and put it into your story, it's like, yeah, having the diamond heart, not understanding what it means, what it stands for, then experiencing its formation and transformation, it's like to an even bigger and better version. It's
Exactly.
like, wow, that is an amazing gift.
Absolutely. And you nailed it, because that's exactly whenever I can even see that image in my head of the obsidian encasing that my heart, so to speak. It's like, well, it makes sense that we have these diamond hearts, and that the pressure of existence here and the reincarnation cycle and stuff like that, of course, that is what is making these diamond hearts more brilliant and unbreakable, you know?
And I will say one of the things that I think is sets people apart from each other. Not that I'm saying there's differences like, better than or, that, but when someone is aware of their star seed background and abilities versus those that aren't, when you put them under the pressure, it's like everybody that I've seen that has stories similar to yours. I have my own stories of what I overcame growing up. But we have survived things that it's like we actually will say, like I've even said at times going, I don't think a normal human could survive everything that I've been through. And
Yeah.
I'm standing today because I have that star seed
Yes.
side and I'm a hybrid, so to speak. And
I
so
agree. Hmm.
it's like, and so when we're looking at other people and they're like, when they go, oh, I can't imagine that, I'm like, that's because you haven't awakened yet.
Yeah.
You don't understand who you are yet. And that's, to me, the main difference is the awareness of and acceptance of versus awareness of and denying or just not even aware of. And that's, I think, the gift that I'm trying to bring and that you bring with your show is to sit there and say, look, we may not always share what we've gone through, but believe me, we've gone through what you could call hell and beyond. And here we are today. You
100%.
can do it too.
That's exactly the point that I'm trying to make with my show. Quite honestly, that is exactly the point that I'm trying to make with my message, because I want people to realize how important they are. They've really stomped us into making us feel like we are so small and so insignificant, and that our human consciousness is not nearly as powerful as all these greater outer forces in the material world, and that's just simply not true. If you take if you take one of my favorite movies, for instance, The Fifth Element,
Oh, yeah.
and the ending of that Fifth Element movie, which relates a lot to my story. The big black ball of darkness that was coming towards them, that was unstoppable, that was literally getting bigger every time they threw missiles at it, and hatred and whatever else, whatever violence they were throwing at it, was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But what was it that destroyed that big black ball? It was true love. It was that fifth element. Okay, like they had, right, they had the four elements that
Yeah.
lined up, and the thing that really needed to bring it all together to destroy and save the planet was her awakening to true unconditional love, God's love, source's love. So it just shows you it's like it's so powerful. We can, and that's the thing. You have to start off kind of small when it comes to these types of things. When you start to really slowly start to believe in yourself again and believe and just contemplate it. That's really all it takes. Just what if what they're saying is right? What if I am more powerful than what I've been told or what I think I am? What if I do have a more important role to play that know what, like most people would call that egotistical or something like that. It's like, well, put that aside for a second. What if it's true though? What if I'm saying that you are just as much as important as the main character in The Fifth Element, okay, as everyone else is. We all have our own most important role to play. But if you don't allow yourself to open up to the belief that that is true, then how will you ever receive that gift? Because that is how they keep us in the chains of our own self-limiting beliefs. So that's part of why I try to tell people every little tiny detail I can think of, to let people see, like, this is the path I walked, this is how I got here, this is how I broke this chain, this is how I broke that chain, and you can do it too. Because if we don't have examples and role models of people doing it, how are they going to have that hope to do that? Like, we're way showers.
Very
you know
true. And as much as, Stargate is a way shower movie because it opened up, not only travel through different universes, but also, the idea that, who we thought we were worshiping may not be who we're worshiping. So it's like made us question, who are the gods, so to speak.
yes.
And then, like you're saying, Fifth Element. And there's one that I think a lot of people don't see for what it is, and that would be Star Trek, one of the original series movies, the fourth one,
Hmm.
where they have to travel back in time to get humpback whales because a species has come to communicate with them over a long distance and is shutting down everything
Wow.
because they cannot get the answer they're looking for, and the answer is the humpback whales.
Yeah.
So they go and they bring a pair back from the 80s to their current time, and the whales are swimming and they start to talk, and all of a sudden the weather calms down, the planet restores itself back to harmony, and you see this ball that was spinning in space through light go back into this large cylinder, and it just disappears.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, the truth of that element of that movie was, as superior as we are, we're not the only superior beings here. We need all of them. We can't
100%.
erase one being because we think we're superior to them, and because this could be our future. We could have a benevolent species come to talk to their relatives here, and if we've extinguished them, that's not good. They're not going to be happy. And so, yeah, we need to look at, is, that could that reality be real? And what would we do if we did destroy an entire species?
Yes, I'm definitely vibing with that. And in fact, it's the reminded spirits like reminded me of another movie, but there's something else. It's basically saying like like I was saying earlier, like everyone has a role, everything has a role to play. That's just as important. Like you can't downplay it, just because they've convinced us that everything is just coincidence. Like that's really
Yeah.
what it is. They literally told people things don't mean anything, that synchronicities don't mean anything, and they do. And I have not seen that particular Star Trek movie, but I was very big into all the Star Trek TV shows, so I'm definitely in alignment with you as far as like that being one of the ways to open our minds up into all the possibilities of where what our future could be and how we can like what roles that we have to play, like what gifts do we have, like let's say for instance like what character were you drawn to on Star Trek like the Next Generation. Perhaps you were drawn to like Deanna Troy and her character, you know, perhaps you were drawn more to Commander Worf and what he was doing security wise. So for me I would say like someone relating to Troy is probably has gifts of telepathy and empathic ability. You know, someone attracted more to Worf is probably more related to the reptilian race as far as like being a warrior, being strong, knowing what's powerful, you know, truly powerful in the world. But the other movie that they were reminding me of as you were talking about that one, which I feel like is a lesser known movie, is this movie called The Arrival. Have you ever heard of it?
I have. Charlie
Yes.
Sheen was in it, I believe.
Oh wait. Hold on.
Or wait,
There might
no,
be two
Jeremy
movies.
Renner.
Yes. Yeah, you have the right one with the squid beings
Yes,
that come, and it's like they don't know how to they have the trouble that they have communicating with us is that time doesn't work in the same way. It's not linear for them. It's more like a circle. And so this is how they come back and they like I remember when they were communicating with the woman and they kept showing her images of things that she had didn't she's like this doesn't make any sense to me, you know, and they were like, "Oh, we're sorry. We're actually pulling from your future and we're giving you messages about your future." My cat just came running in here because my toilet went off for a second. It was pretty funny. But anyway, um, but yeah, so it just shows you, like you never, I forget exactly where I was going with that part, but I feel like that is another aspect of like they came to ask for our help, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like
right,
every person's role, every person had like, who knows? What if that like which person relates to that role the most where they feel like they could be the translator for that alien species, you know, someone who's like okay like for me being attracted to Stargate and all that type of stuff, right? So that's another thing that someone could use as an example of if you're really super drawn to that movie and you're drawn to that particular character, perhaps you have a role to play when it comes to you're here to translate for those entities that perhaps time doesn't work exactly the same way. And so here we are trying to help them because it's a like what's the word for it? Like a mutual you're getting a mutual benefit by
right.
doing that. You know, they're getting something out of it and then we're getting something out of it at the same time,
Symbiotic.
like helping each other. Yeah, you know. So yeah, that's just where I was going with that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is when we first, if my memory is right, when we first were talking offline, not on show, meaning just between us, we actually had a show in common that I think fits the same element of what you're talking about, and that is Doctor Who.
Uh, Absolutely.
And what I found interesting, and I'm curious your thoughts of, is in watching all of the Doctor Who's, and I think it actually can translate even to the original seven before they really brought it out to the forefront in such a major way with all the effects and everything, is you were seeing different aspects and different personas of the Doctor, who is this being that's like 900 plus years old, seeing time, from the beginning to the end. But how do you relate that? So he has the war aspect, the romance aspect, the, sad or broody, or the action or the comic. And so I feel like that's what we were seeing. And the one thing that they always had in common, though, was whoever it was, you're going to go through me because I'm protecting this world under this galactic ordinance, and it's like, wait a minute, there's a galactic ordinance protecting us. It's so cool to know, and it's like all this information is just flooding out. And yeah, the TARDIS, being a phone box that's this huge ship that's multi-level and multi-dimensional, and
Exactly.
it's like, yeah, it's like it really, to me, brought to reality everything that we experience and can feel and see, but in a way that everybody could understand it. And
Exactly.
I feel like this show, it gets referenced a lot, but not really as much as it ought to be.
Well, I think the thing that makes it hard for people is that because each and every episode was different, and it did build like for certain races and stuff, it did build on top of other stories. So you kind of did, like, you didn't have to watch every episode. You could take an episode and take it at face value. But if you really wanted to get the full depth of it, you needed to watch the other episodes and to see how it led to that. You know what I'm saying? I love the
Yeah.
way they show us how um, time traveling and how influencing the past can change the future. How there are some points in time that are fixed points that cannot be changed, because those you change those points, then you cause a whole slew of mess. But then there are other, like being able to figure out what the difference between those two things is. And not only that, the thing that I really love about the Doctor Who series in itself is the lore behind it. And here's just some little fun little pieces of lore that I picked up from this show along the way. And Peter Capaldi's run of the Doctor, which is the 12th Doctor, he's my favorite Doctor.
Yeah.
His own people come after him because he's always hanging around Earth, right? He's always like protecting the Earth. And supposedly he has this information about an entity called the Hybrid. Okay, is they did a whole arc on it. Okay, and this hybrid was supposedly supposed to be what would take down the Time Lords, the corrupt Time Lords. And what they try to hint at basically is that what I heard, the theory is that the Doctor was actually a hybrid himself of a human and Time Lords. And so that was why he liked to hang around Earth and do all this stuff on Earth. Because you kind of got to ask yourself, it's like, why would a Time Lord just be hanging out here on planet Earth all the time, right?
Well,
And so,
you,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
he could argue because we need as much help as we can
We
get.
do. We do. I do think that this is possibly, I do. I think that this planet, I forget who it was that said this type of information, but it's like, this is like the biggest living library, so to speak, in the universe. Like, the Earth itself is a living library and a
Yeah.
record keeper, record holder. And
Or a school. I've heard it referred to as school.
yes, I've heard something along the lines of like, not to be like, oh, the Earth is just the greatest thing ever, but what if it truly is like a pivotal planet as far as keeping the whole ship running? Like, something about that felt so right when I heard it, the way that this person put it this one time. And I'm doing a terrible job at translating it here for you guys today. But I think that that's part of what happens, is that people get distracted with all the possibilities of, like, we're Andromedan, or we're from Arcturus, or we're Lyrid, or this, and they forget that, but we're here on Earth now. And so what is it that we're not meant to be constantly seeking out there to, like, go, like, oh, I want to just get off of this planet and stop reincarnating here so I can go back to these other places. Like, no, we were sent here from those other places.
Yeah.
We were sent here from those other places to bring to the Earth, to the people, to humanity, the information, the frequency of those other locations. And of the, like, some people, like for me, I relate to being like an extra dimensional, I think is what Barry Littleton calls it, which is like not even from this universe at all. Like we really just have no true understanding, I think, of what this universe is, how it works, and how it can relate to even other universes, parallel universes, all that type of stuff. And so
Yeah.
people need to really focus on what, again, what are you most attracted to here on Earth? Which stories are you most attracted to here on Earth? Because that most likely has to do with your mission. It's not just strictly for enjoyment. And you know what it is when you feel it in your heart. It's like when people say, find something you love to do and make that your job, because then you won't be doing it because it's a job. You'll be doing it because it's something that you love. You really put your heart and your soul and your creativity into it. It's like when you're in that creative space, that is when you are on the right track. So what inspires you to feel the most creative? What stories inspire you? Which series inspire you to be the most creative? Because I know for me, Spirit talks a lot to me through just using TV shows, songs, movies, clips of things, images, memes, and so because we're always receivers. People just think that this stuff is just auto playing and running on its own. It's like it's not. Like, we are receivers and we're always picking up things. And if you don't stop and you don't pay attention to what those things are, then you're going to miss the message possibly.
Yeah.
You are important, people, is what I'm saying. We are all this important. Pay attention.
Yeah. And, talking about the hybrid, to go back to Doctor Who for a second, I just realized, hearing that theory, because I hadn't heard that before. And now it, like, the entire Matt Smith as Doctor makes total sense now, because it would be his moment of being awakening to the hybrid, because what you see is he starts out with, there's the crack in the universe where
Yes.
another universe is trying to come in,
Mm-hmm.
and he loses his companions and he shuts down, and he's supposed to be this all, knowing, he's got all the information, and he gets crushed like a human because he has to say goodbye to his companions because he can't save them. And it's like he gets thrown into this whole arc of, yeah, there's no
That's it.
point in helping
Yes.
anymore, and just totally goes human. And who's
Yes.
the next Doctor? Peter Capaldi.
Exactly. Well, you know who it was that really tied it back together for him to come back and to start caring again was Clara.
Yeah,
After he lost
Amy.
Amy and Rory in the pocket dimension that basically the Weeping Angels took them to and sealed them off in. And you remember, if you remember that episode too, it's like it started with them reading a book. If you remember, they started with,
Yeah,
and the book was actually written under a pseudonym, and they found out that the pseudonym writer was actually River Song herself. But the Doctor doesn't like endings, so he tore out the last page. But at the end of the show, that episode, and Amy and Rory get taken, and River Song is basically talking to him, and she's like, you need to find someone else to travel with because you should never travel alone. It's not good for you. And he was like he was just absolutely in shambles. And he's like, how am I going to live without Amy and Rory? That's happened to them because of, he always blames himself, because of me. This
yeah,
happened to them because of me. And she's like, well, I wrote that book, right? And he was like, yeah. And she was like, I'll just go to them and I'll just write a forward. I'll just go back in time and I'll write or an afterword. And so that way you will know how they're doing. And then he realizes, oh my God, I ripped that last page out. And so he runs back to grab that page, and he grabs that page, and it's an afterword, and it's a message from Amy and Rory letting them know that they're okay and that they're
yeah.
just trapped in this other universe, but it's okay. And she gives them advice. And so then he goes silent, he goes solo for a little bit, which is going to drive him crazy. The same way it drove David Tennant crazy too. If you remember in the
Yeah.
David Tennant breakdown, he went and tried
After
to change.
Rose.
He went to go well, actually it was after Donna at this point. After he
All
lost Donna,
right.
he went crazy and he went to go try to change a fixed point in time on Mars. And by doing so, he got a little bit arrogant and a little bit cocky, and ended up causing this woman who was supposed to die in Mars, and it was going to inspire her granddaughter to take up space travel and push humanity forward, but because he changed the ending, it made it so that the woman who was supposed to die on Mars, she was back on Earth now, and she killed herself. So it ended up like that was how he like it reset the timeline, but like that was the consequence that he had to pay, and it just showed him yet again like the doctor should never travel alone, you know. So for
Right.
the Matt Smith version, Clara was the one that came along because Clara kept showing up in different timelines as different. It's the same person but different. She'd have like a little bit different name, a little bit different name, and he's like, "What?" But she would always end up dying. So he's trying to figure out like why is this chick always dying? So now he's like got his eyes fixed on her, and he's like trying to figure out that, and that was what eventually led him spiraling into becoming the Peter Capaldi version of himself. And
Right.
Claire's my favorite, one of my favorite characters, if not the favorite character. That's who I relate to the most
Yeah,
is Clara. So
she's one
I
of my
could go on and
favorites
on.
too.
Yeah, I could go on and on about her, you know. So
My favorite Claire moment was riding the motorcycle into
yes,
the
into the
TARDIS.
TARDIS.
And
Yes.
she's like,
Oh
okay, I'm
my
ready to go
god.
now. It's like,
Yes, I remember that one. That was one they brought all three of the doctors together, right? The David Tennant
yeah,
version and the
Matt Smith.
wartime doctor
It
and Matt
was
Smith.
Matt Smith, David Tennant, and
And then
William Hurt.
yes, yes. He was the wartime doctor that they had tried to. It was basically like he was the shadow aspect of themselves that they tried to ignore and pretend never happened and never existed because they
Yeah,
were like, no, you betrayed the name of the doctor. And he was like, I was left with no other choice but to make the choice that I made. You tell me how I could have made a different choice. You want to judge me now, but you tell me how. And then they all come together and they realize, wait a second, we need to support him, and we need to figure out we can, now that he has us here with him, we can support him and we can help come up with a new plan in a new way, and they do. And you
yeah.
know, it's such a beautiful thing.
And Victor actually brings up an interesting point I hadn't thought about. He says, now that I think of it, I wonder if they called her Clara to
Oh,
bring clarity back
I
to
love
him.
that. I love that. And it really did. It brought him back into his purpose, which was, as the Matt Smith version, he was very much more the child aspect. You know,
Yeah,
he was more playful. He was more, yeah, like having a good time all the time. You know, it's like Peter Capaldi is much more serious. You know, that's when the doctor goes into his phase of what defines a good man between a, like what makes a good man good.
yeah,
You know, like he wants to really understand the depth of that. But with Matt Smith, he's like, I'm just here to have fun and kick ass. You know, and
yeah,
he's not thinking about all of his hardships that he had to overcome, all like his planet being destroyed and all that type of stuff, which William Hurt was very upset about. If you remember in that episode, he was very like, how long did it took? It only took you 500 years to forget the amount of people and the children that died on Gallifrey, you know. And David
yeah,
Tennant, though, David Tennant's like the emo version, I guess you could say, of the doctors. He was like, I remember each and every one of them, you know, and all their names.
yeah.
Like, you know, like, so yeah. Oh my gosh. We could go on talking about Doctor Who. And anytime you want to have a Doctor Who episode, I'm right down for that. So
Oh, yeah. And we actually have a question from Selena. Is I think she was talking about something we were talking about earlier. She goes, I get a lot of messages the same way too. Have you ever thought of something a few weeks or months before you've seen it or heard it?
absolutely. I'm trying to think of an example of that, but I know what you're talking about. I mean, for me, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I would have to say, is when I was pregnant with my daughter. Okay, I literally had like a package of dreams that came to me. These like, and they weren't really dreams. I know that now. They were showing me the future. They were showing me memories. And so I'd had these dreams, and then they basically started happening 4 years after that. And they're the types of dreams were these very, they were like long drawn out days worths of events that was happening. And like there were things that like didn't make sense to me at the time. And like the first major one that unlocked for me was I'd had this dream when I was pregnant with my daughter that I was at this building, this office building that was on the beach, and I was hanging out with friends, and it was nighttime, and there was these we were on this dock, like a boat dock, and there was these red light. It was nighttime, and there was these red lights that were going down the dock, and me and these friends of mine that I had, we were like deciding to go and explore these cruise ships that were at the edge of this dock, and we were jumping through it, and we were like, wow, this is like really cool. And then it moved on into I was like working in this office building, and I was mainly just looking at these like lists of paper, and I didn't really feel like I was doing very much, and I was like, how am I even working here? And we'll skip over some of the rest of it here, but to get to the point of it, when I woke up at the time, I thought, what an unusual dream, because at the time I had no friends. So I was just kind of like, what, where would I even be doing it? Like, this is just such a strange dream. Well, as it turns out, at my main, I guess, event that you could say that really activated me, it started off with I was hanging out with some friends that turned out to be like my soul family. And we were hanging out at night, and we were on a hotel. We were at a hotel that was on a beach. Okay. And this is where the conference was going to be. But like I said, it was nighttime, and we were hanging outside the hotel on this dock, and the dock had all these red lights that were leading back. And at the end of the dock, guess what? It was COVID. So all the cruise ships were parked at the end of the dock. And so now I know, like, that's what it was showing me. We were like exploring them astrally, so to speak. And then it just so happened I was a volunteer there. And so what was my job as being the volunteer? I had to check people in. So I had to look at the names. I was looking at these lists of names, you know? So yeah, definitely you can, like, those are prophecies. In fact, the biggest ways that women of old used to get into those meditative states, to have those visions and have those prophecies, was like during sewing, or during, what is it, the wheel you have to do when you're doing wool, you're making the thread, right?
Oh, yeah,
You
the
know what I'm talking about? Which I think
spinning wheel.
that's the spinning wheel, yes. And so women would do that, and that's if you had the ability of psychic powers and stuff like that, that was how you would get these visions. And that's why the men would pay attention to what the women were saying in these tribal cultures when they were doing these certain things, because they knew that women had the ability to, like, it was basically the first form of meditation, one of the first forms of meditation for women to be able to have these. So it doesn't surprise me. Selena, of all people, you definitely have a gift. Yeah, you definitely have a gift.
Yeah,
So, yes,
and
like the fates.
yep, and the thread of destiny. That,
Yes.
yeah, it's always interesting, And I will say, because I know we're running a little bit over time, but one of the shows that is not metaphysical in the least, or disclosure in the least, was Hercules with Kevin Sorbo.
Okay.
But there
Yes.
was a
Oh, I
scene
love that show.
where they
Xena
went to
and
cut the
Hercules.
thread, from the fates, and when they went to cut it, the scissors shattered. And they were like, "You're not
Wow.
allowed to cut this thread." And they were like, "This is a divine thread." And
Yeah.
I was like, when you're talking about that, I was like, it got me thinking about, yeah, with the fates, there are
Exactly.
threads that cannot be cut. And could
Yeah.
those be like our example of the fixed time and
I was
space?
just That's exactly what I was about to say. I was like, it's almost like those are like the fixed points in time that have to happen, that those threads can't be cut. Yes. Yes. Hmm.
And so one way I'm thinking of tweaking that too could be is it's a sign that when the people that are coming to help put, into full motion the awakening, the whatever you want to call it, grand rising, or the arrivals of the hybrids, those are not going to be able to be cut or extinguished, because their mission is so strong that we built such a foundation for them that nothing's going to stop what's coming. And that's why we're hearing the phrase, the storm is coming. Nothing can stop the storm.
Yes.
It's like prophecy coming true and saying, this is what we've been working for. This is what it's all been about. Now's the time. And
Absolutely.
so it's interesting how we're getting all these references that have been around for decades, but we never really look at them. And now we're seeing them and going, wait a minute, we've
Exactly.
been being prepared for this as much as we've been lied to and manipulated. So it's true that, they sneak in the truth, and if you can find it and weave it, then you are, the way showers, because we can show everybody else what we've seen, and it's like, yeah,
We're planting those seeds, and we're making those seeds that have already been planted, we're watering them and we're making them stronger. You know what I'm saying? Because it is our collective human consciousness, it's our collective consciousness that's been hijacked. We're creator beings, and so yes, I think even the Q movement itself was monumental in planting so many seeds for us to bring to fruition that nothing can stop what's coming. Now, do I think it's going to go down exactly the way people think it is? Probably not, because I do think that ultimately it's like it's all of us that have to step up and rise together. It's not some outside force that we can wait to just take this action. It's like it's a personal journey, and once everyone gets into alignment, like I said, it's like the human consciousness will all, it's like the people who are in harmony with each other are the ones that are most connected right now. And so that's why it's so important to get onto that frequency wave. But think about all the people that are out of harmony and discordant with the rest of us. We need to get more, the more people we get into harmony with what it is our true mission here is, which Lisa Renee calls it the Christos realignment mission, which basically just means bringing the Christ consciousness back to humanity and the planet. Because
right.
once that is reignited in people into the entire collective conscious, human consciousness, once that's reignited, it will behave and act in accordance with the nature of that. You know what I'm saying? With the nature of love. And we will be able to root out all the people that are not that, which is basically, it's almost like the Dark Crystal, if you know
Oh
that
yeah,
show at all. Yeah, like it's like the this
the schism.
this what do they call the
Oh, the
Skeksis?
Skeksis.
Yes, you know what I'm saying? It's like we can't recognize those. They're hiding amongst us, and unless we all get into alignment again, somehow, one by one, because everyone's role is as important as the other one. As soon as we reach that critical threshold where the whole human race comes back online, then we're going to be able to see and root out all those evil ones, all the beings that are here that aren't, might even be demons in human bodies, that might even just be human bodies that don't even have a soul. You know what I'm saying? There are
Yeah.
things that are out there that are like that, and so we need to figure out what we need to know what those feel like, and that's why, yeah, that's why it's just
Yeah.
so important for people to really work on themselves and
And
work on remembering who they are and what they are, which is love. They are
yeah,
love.
I don't. The only thing I will say is I don't know that we need all to start it, because think about this. As a nation, America, we're told in history, toppled the greatest empire in the world with less than 1%.
Yes,
And so,
it's the 100th monkey effect. Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. And
Yeah,
so I
it's
don't want
that.
everyone sitting there thinking, oh, we have to wait until we have
No,
every
no,
single person. No, it'll start.
it'll
And I
happen.
think
Yes,
as the shift is happening, those who are not waking up will sit there and be able to go and say, no, I don't want to do that. That's not my mission. I'm going to stay on my mission and we'll go and do what they're going to do. And those that were like, no, I'm not going to follow that, or now like, ooh, wait a minute, maybe that wasn't such the wacky idea. This is not getting me anywhere. Let's go over there and try that. And
Yeah.
so then more will come and join, but I don't necessarily buy in that we need all. I think there are some that are here to do the other path, and so I bless them and send
Same
them
here.
on their way.
Hmm.
And I just am like, that's where I get frustrated, is when I hear everyone saying, well, we need to get the masses behind us. I'm like, no, we really don't.
Yeah.
We just need
We
to
just need
get
a percentage of
a
them.
start. If once
Yes,
it starts, the mass will come after.
exactly. I feel like it's like in Lord of the Rings when they light the towers, right? It's like you
Right.
light one tower, but they're so far apart, and then the next tower gets lit, and the next tower gets lit, and then eventually the help comes because those towers are. It's like the star seeds are those towers. And yes, I'm in agreement with you. I don't think it's like every single person has to come into full awareness of who they are for us to make that shift on the planet. I don't. I think that there's a certain, like I said with the 100th monkey effect, where it's like where they proved that the consciousness of these monkeys was connected to all the consciousness of all the monkeys that were all around the world. So once one learned how to wash food off, once a certain number of them learned to wash the food off, then all over the world, without even having been taught, these other monkeys learned how, okay, we're going to wash the food off this way. I feel like the same is true for people who are connected to source and who are true immortal beings, I guess you could say. And so we don't need every single one of you guys to wake up all at once. We just need enough of you. We just need to draw enough of us to ourselves, get us to awaken up to the point where then it just automatically goes. It's like the monkey. It's going to go to all the people that are capable of achieving that, and they'll
And
become awakened to that. You know what I'm saying?
and I would
That's the
argue a
shift.
little bit that that's already started,
It is
because we start to
absolutely, it has.
see
Hmm.
scenarios where 4 years ago, if we took what's happening today, we would have been in like fear mode and going, okay, we're in lockdown, we're shutting everything down, we're isolating ourselves. But now they're trying it, and we're looking at them and saying, are you nuts? We're not gonna shut down anything.
Hell
We're not
no.
going to go into hiding. We're here. And the people who I've been reading reports where, when we talk about these massive protests, that it's more like 50 people, and
Yeah,
once their time is up, they just walk away. They're like, okay, my time limit's up. This is what I got paid for. I'm out. And so there is
exactly.
no real protest. And it's like we're seeing it. And so their tactics aren't working. And that's what I think people need to see right now, is the old game plan that they played on us 4 years ago is not working.
Exactly.
That's the growth that we've came from and experienced and learned from. So yes, when you say nothing is changing, there is stuff changing. It's just on such small scales that we're overlooking it because we're wanting the bigger picture. And
Yes.
it's like, no, there's, it's almost like, I would say, to your analogy, we're the light workers, we're like the match, and we're trying to ignite the match as the whole, when it only takes one surface to scratch it and ignite it, and that spark will ignite other sparks, and that's when you get the huge ball of flame that's lighting everything up. Is where all the little matches that are going to be combined in and making the huge. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't know where I was going with that either. I was having one of your moments where I was like, yeah,
It
that's
happens. It
apparently
happens.
it.
And just to bring up something really small and it's kind of silly, but to agree with you on the fact that their old tactics are not going to work again this time. I literally had I I needed to go to the doctor for something. I have this new primary physician because I'm lucky enough to have health insurance at this point. And I called not that long ago to make an appointment. And do you know that they told me that I would have to wear a mask inside the doctor's office? And I just told them straight up, no. I was like, there's no way. I'm like, what day and age are we living in? I said, really? Masks? We're going back to that, to where you think mask works? Like, so the doctor agreed to come see me if I just came to the office and I was sitting in my car. Like I'm just some bum on the street. He's going to come outside and look over. And I was just like, I called and I canceled my appointment because I was like, I got to find a new primary
Yeah.
doctor. I'm like, because no way. We are never going back to masks. We are never going back to lockdowns. No, not happening.
Right.
We
I
learned that
mean,
lesson.
yeah. Anybody who sits there and says, "Oh, the masks are so necessary and did so much,"
God, it's
I would
crazy.
have to like literally get a camera and like look at it and go, "Are you for real? Are you really here, or are you an illusion that's like
Exactly.
messing with my mind?"
Like, are you just a computer algorithmic, like freaking taking over entity or something? Because that shit's not gonna fly anymore. It is not. No more. Yeah.
Yeah.
To think mass work, the audacity. Like, my
What
God.
rock were you under?
I know. It's just like, are you kidding me? Like, oh my God. For the health of the concern of the other patients that are coming in, I was going to need to wear a mask. I said, I'm already coming in for a lung infection. I said, I'm not depriving myself of oxygen and making my condition worse just so someone else can feel like that works when it doesn't. I said, we've already
Well,
proven
and
that doesn't work.
that was one of the things too, is they said if you have lung conditions, you can't wear the mask. So then it
Yeah.
became the face shield. And
Yeah.
even that, like you're limiting your air, which by nature is the problem for someone who has a lung condition. So
Exactly.
why are we making it worse
Those people, they dumbed
to
us
make
down.
it's
Oh my
like, yeah,
God. Because it was a test to see who, like, our IQ and our critical thinking skills. And it's very disheartening and sad, and that so many people fell for it and that so many people supported it. And hopefully they can see now, though. Hopefully some of them can see now that it absolutely did the exact opposite. Like people who knew their jobs, like knew OSHA standards and stuff and regulations, and then they were literally changing the OSHA standards and about the amount of oxygen that you get from the mask. Like, oh yeah, sorry, we won't go down
yeah,
that timeline anymore. But yes, I
yeah,
agree with you on these things. Yes.
yes. And wow, I can't believe we're almost at an hour and 50 minutes. Wow, time
I
flew
can't.
by.
That's how I do this. You ever been to one of my streams? I can't stop until I hit that 2 hour mark. It seems like I try sometimes to not go to 2 hours, but I can't control it.
Well, fortunately, I can, and
Thank
I'm
God.
going. I am going to say yes. I agree with you, Selena. It did go by fast, and we will definitely have to have you back on and do some more, like you're saying, Doctor Who, and just some more of these
I would love
conversations,
to.
because I feel like, man, we hit so many targeted aspects that people so need to hear right now. And that's why I love doing my shows this way, is because it's conversation. It goes where it goes, and it's not scripted of question one, question two, question three.
It's a good style. I know. That's exactly why I wanted to be on here after I saw a couple of your shows. I was like, I like the conversation style you have that goes, you're a good talker. You're good at getting to flow out naturally. So yeah, anytime you want to have me on, I'm there. I know it takes like 3 months in advance though. Let me know. I don't want
Yeah,
to be waiting a year from now. We're like, oh yeah, we'll do this again, and then a year later, no, no,
yeah.
just get a hold of me. I'll be there. I'm down to clown.
Well, I have new means to connect with you, so definitely will have you back on sooner than the almost a year of prep. So thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your support, and thank you for what you do. And I will say my normal goodbye is, oh, Selena, good. Thank you for mentioning that. My next book is due to be published. We're hoping for Veterans Day, November 11th. That'll be book 3 of the 4-book series. So Selena is my awesome
Great
editor,
date.
illustrator, and the one who brings it to life. So I am so grateful and appreciative to her.
Aww, love seeing
And
that.
oh, yeah, she says, and there's a coloring book coming out in between. So
That's
keep
pretty
an eye out
sweet.
for that.
That's pretty sweet. My daughter loves stuff like that, so I'll be keeping my eye out for that one.
Yeah. So I am going to give you the special send off that I have been guided to be doing, and that is simply and powerfully saying, my heart and my show's heart to you. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity. It is seen, it is felt, it is known.
Thank you. I can feel that. It's a beautiful way to end it. I appreciate the same back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Yes, and for everybody who's going to be watching this in the replay, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow along because you never know when Aurora might be making her return appearance. So keep in touch, and we will call it a night. And thank you all for watching. Thank you, Aurora, for sharing your gifts with us. And we're going to say goodnight, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for having me.